Hi, I'm Emily here at the Whale Interpretive Center, and today we're going to be discussing the different types of killer whales that are found in British Columbia's waters. If you'd like to hear this video en français, check out my coworker's Audrey's video. She'll be filming the same video for us in French. So today we're going to be discussing the different types of killer whales that are found in British Columbia. There's 3 different ones. There's 10 different types of killer whales worldwide, and we're lucky enough to have 3 in British Columbia. All 3 of these species eat different things, speak different languages, have different family structure, and are genetically separate. They do not breed together. And so we've kind of made a quick little outline for us to do a crash course in this today and discuss the different types of killer whales. So we'll start off here, residents. These are probably some of the most well-known of our killer whales. We also have bigs or transient killer whales, and our newest known species is the offshore killer whale. So resident killer whales eat salmon. This is a really important fact. It shapes a lot of what these animals do behavior-wise. The bigs or transient killer whales eat marine mammals. These are seals, sea lions, dolphins, porpoises, the calves of large whales like gray whales and humpback whales. And then we have the offshore killer whales that eat sharks, and this is really unique because the shark's skin is so rough it actually wears in their teeth over time, and this is actually one of our first clues that offshores even exist, is we'd find these animals that have worn down teeth over years of eating sharks. So what are these animals' ranges? They each have their own range. So residents, we have northern and southern residents that are genetically separate populations. The northern residents live from central Vancouver Island to southeast Alaska. The southern resident killer whales are living Washington State up to the southern part of Vancouver Island around the Gulf Islands there and San Juan Islands. The bigs or transient killer whales are living Oregon all the way up to Alaska, and with the biggest range of all, our offshore killer whales are living from California all the way up to Alaska. So how do these animals talk? How do they vocalize? Well, we're going to see different types of vocalization for each different type of killer whale. So residents are highly vocal, and this is because the salmon are not particularly acoustically sensitive. They don't have very good hearing. And so these guys can chat all day and not give themselves away to their salmon prey. The bigs killer whales are going to be less vocal when they're hunting, and this is because the seals and dolphins that they're hunting, they can hear them, and so they need to be quieter. So certainly though, we do see more vocalization after a kill has been made, when they're not trying to be so stealthy anymore. And then we have offshore killer whales. We think these animals are also highly vocal, potentially even more vocal than those resident killer whales, but at least equally so. And so we do hear lots of chatter from those guys on hydrophones when we're near them. How are their family groups organized? So resident killer whales are famous for their matrilineal groups, and we chatted about those in our video 2 weeks ago for our killer whale lingo video. And so matrilineal groups are a female killer whale leading her offspring, grandchildren, as many generations as she lives to see. And these groups can be quite large at times. They can also be quite small too. Bigs killer whales are generally, we're going to see smaller groups, and this is along those same lines of wanting to be stealthy when you're hunting seals and dolphins. Obviously you can't have a great big group if you're trying to be really quiet, so we do see generally smaller groups, which sometimes are matrilineal but not always in these bigs killer whales. For offshore killer whales, we are seeing really big groups, so sometimes more than 20 individuals, sometimes even 100 individuals or more, and so we do see large groups. Again, these guys don't need to be sneaky because the sharks cannot hear them, so if they're hunting, they can still likely be vocalizing in large groups. So we like to clear up as well that resident killer whales are not actually resident in the way that humans are resident. And so as we discussed, the resident killer whales have a pretty large size range, and so this is confusing because even though they are resident in that range is big. So it's like saying I'm a resident of Vancouver Island. That doesn't actually narrow it down if you want to come find me somewhere, and so it makes it really difficult for someone who wants to come whale watching and says, oh, I'm here to see the resident killer whales. In their mind, that means the resident stays in one place, and that's just not the way these animals work. They are resident within their large range. And the bigs is also a confusing name. So they used to be called transient, we're now calling them bigs. You'll notice it's with 2 G's, named for Dr. Michael Big, not that they're bigger in size. Dr. Michael Big was one of the forefathers of killer whale research, so we've named them after him. Offshore is actually a very good name because these animals are further offshore most of the time in search of their prey, sharks, but we don't know a lot about them. And that's because animals that live farther offshore are harder to research, they're harder to learn about, just because they don't lend themselves as well for coming in close to where people often are. If you'd like to learn more about killer whales, don't hesitate to drop by the Whale Interpretive Center in Telegraph Cove.